certain kalim that it is not able to take the Indian of Purim. It seems to have a very effective.
Kaf Aleph, the Adar Tashin Samech Tes. You're on Amid Kaf Daled of Hemshech Samech Tes of the Rebbe Rishab.
So more mehr Kalim, so the Kalim is not able to be Kaf. Right, so we saw the Indian of Malchus, how there's this Roimus Atzmias, but that's Miyuchat with the Atzmias of the Melech. And then we saw there was the Roimus of the Melech Al-Am. And we saw that that was the Indian of the Indian of Malchus, how it is Mokir La'elamus Biyah. Reimamus Al-Am, so beginners of Malchus, Shanase, beginners Keser L'Biyah. So Kamoy Shehu Chutz La'Tzilas, Shabo beginners Koyach Nivdal, Alidei Pkias Haparsa. And we saw the view of there was Kolei that you're in Elamah Tzilas, then that's the close at the Shemavaya, well that's Lamaila Mimokila Elamas, as we saw. Because Shemavaya is the Indian from Tzilas Mamich. Ile Elakus Kipshute, not the Indian from Elakus Atz Mamisha, Amokia to Nivoim, or Bagila Elakus Mamich. So even Malchus, Spheres of Malchus, the Indian from Keach Reina, the Shemavaya, how it's Nimta by Elamah Tzilas, even that is not shy to the Reimamus Al-Am. That's the Reimamus Al-Atzmiyas, even though it's already the Indian of Malchus, or it's shy to the Madrega of Reimamus Al-Atzmiyas, being as it is, the Elakus Pieta.
Is there some kind of connection between the fact that the Shem Havaya starts with a Yud and the Shem Adne, it ends with a Yud?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's brought down in quite a few places. The relationship between the two Yudin, and it's that that's what we call Chochma Ilah or Chochma Tatua. Chochma Tatua is Emerson Malchus. The word Chochma Tatua is an expression for Malchus. And that's the Indian of Malchus, how it's Bokeh, the Parsa, and it becomes like a Mokeh to the Indian, it becomes like a Keser L'Biyah. And that's what we call it's an expression in the Zohar Kodesh as Yud B'Reish v'Yud B'Seif, as a Bitoi. And that's the Indian of the Mokeh of L'mayla mea Chochma, two Chochma in Atzilas, and that's Kilo, how the Pnimius of Chochma da Atzilas is Yered and Bokeh Parsa, and it becomes a Mokeh L'Biyah, and that's at the end of the Shem Avni. You follow? And that's what we were saying the other day, that all the Chesorim have a kesher one with the other. Kol ha-chesorim mishtalshelim zeh mizeh, it's mavoy in Kabbalah. And when we say the word mishtalshelim, we don't really mean mishtalshelers. We mean that they like derive directly one from the other. So that Indian of the Yud Bereish, which is the first voice of the Shemavaya, or as I explained the other night, the Kotza Elyon of the Yud, that's anyway Keser. That's the Indian from Keser, and then the Kreitz Atachtin of the Yud that starts leaning down into Bina. That's only the Indian from the Amshoka into the other spheres. And then that close Mokir, the close, that's not really a Mokir, but the Etzeminian that there can be in a sinus Mokir, two spheres in Keser, well, that goes all the way down into Malchus. And that's what we call Keser Malchus. That's the other night we spoke about that. And then that itself is Bokeas Aparsa, and it becomes like a Roish and a Keser to Olam Asbiyah. And that's the Yud Baroish, Yud B'Seif, which means that they really have a connection one with the other. In other words, that the Kesarim are all Mishtalshel Zemi Zeh, which means that the Keser, how it is in Biyah, or the Keser of Malchus, how it is in Biyah, has a shaykhs with the original Keser at the Reish Kol HaAtzilas.
So what's the difference between the Yud in Chach Milah, the Yud in Chach Milah?
Well, so it's the same term. The Yud in Chach Milah is already shot to Keser Elyon. And the Yud in Chach Matato has already come down into Malchus. It's even been Boker the Parsa, and it's already shot to Biyah. But it still hasn't itself that Koyach, Bildi Seifi, over Behelem, and Tzimtzum, Habi Yesu, wie it is in Chachma. Aber in Hanami, Be'etzim Pnimiusam, there's no real difference. That's the whole thing. Be'etzim Pnimiusam. And therefore we say that Yud of Adne, that becomes Keser Lebiyah. Which means that it's got a shaykhs pinimis to the Keser, how it is at the beginning of Atziel. So we saw that that Indian of Keser Malchus is the Nasinas Koyach from Keser Mamish into Malchus to bring about the whole Indian of Biyah. But we see that the Indian of Malchus is Bokeya as a parser, and it becomes a koyach nivdal al yidei bekiyas haparser. And so we pointed out the other night that the word bekiya means to split through, and parser means a curtain. When you place a curtain in front of oyer, then you get two in on it. First of all, there's a much weaker and a much greater of ha'ora type gilui on the other side of the parser, but that has been achieved through literally a heavy effort on the part of the earth. The earth has to, as it were, force its way through the union of the helem of the parsa. So that's why it is that so there appears this union of Keser on the other side, because the Teikev and the Pinimis of the whole Amshokov and Keser has to re-express itself right at the last darga in order to be bokeya and split through the inner parsa. But that's what we find, that the Lois HaShachar in the morning is called Oz Yiboka VaShachar Oyerecha. That the morning star is also described as a union of bokeya and splitting outwards, because it's put down even in Yom Yom, that right before the Alois HaShachar, it's dark, the darkness of the night and the coldness of the night, kalt and finster, as the expression in Yiddish, immediately before the appearance of the Alois HaShachar, which means that Yubaka is Bekia, meaning that the light that comes through into the morning star has split through that darkness, etc. As it were, build up a tremendous pneumius power to break through the darkness, and that's the union of Bekia's HaParsa here. Because like we pointed out, there are various levels in the Parsa between Atzilus, Malchus Atzilus, and Brio. And the more chitonious aspect of the Parsa, which is called Malach Sandal, that's brought down in many places, it's almost like a sandal, it's almost like a very thick shoe around the whole union of Malchus Atzilus. In order to break through that, there's a very powerful build-up in the pneumius of the oyer in order to split through the parts. And therefore, the union of Shem Adne, which is that Nakudas Malchus which splits through the parts and becomes a Keser to Bi'ah, particularly the Yud in the Shem Adne, or that is Keshet, has a pneumistic shaykhs to the Madreg of Keser, as it was originally in Keser Datzilus, and then it's Keser Malchus, and then it becomes Keser Ria, and they all have a shaykhs pneumius, one with the other. Good. Now we go on, and we say that Umashe Kosov, and that's what is written. Melech Shmoi Nikro Aleihem. We find it written in the pasuk that Melech Shmoi Nikro Aleihem. That what is a king? A king is somebody that his name is called upon his subjects. So therefore, that indicates that what is actually shaykh to the subjects from the Melech is only his name. Hainu b'chinas ispashtus Hashem, Shem b'chinas harememes al am. Well, that indicates that even from the rememes al am, there's, as it were, a sub-hispashtus, but that's called hispashtus ha-shem. And that hispashtus ha-shem is what actually carries out the hanhoga of the Medina. So from that it follows that there are two levels in the sin of hispashtus al-am. There's the inif and hispashtus al-am as it goes through the parsa and becomes a kesel biyah, and then we have an inif and shmoy, nikra aleihim, well that tends to be only a ha'ora once again. And so that's what he's now masbir, that the hinay berememes zu, hainu berememes al-am, yesh gam kein beis madregas. In other words, in the whole level, a king which is now being meir mimeno as a ha'ora for the sake of berememes al-am, not the berememes ha'atzmiyas, like we saw before, the emes of madrega of shame in Malchus. Well, that's got two levels to it. Ha'alev, shemizgala b'chinas rememes el ha'am. He's mizgala to the am, but he's mizgala ba'oifen atzmi, kamash efsha, for him to be mizgala to the people, and he's in oifen of rememes al-am, rememes el-am, or k'moi be'eis min ha'itim, at very special times, be'eis ha-simcha u'gahai gavna, things like a time of great simcha in the whole kingdom, or other such matters. Shemizgala hamelech el ha'am b'chinas rememes v'hispashtus gedulosei b'ribui sorim v'nichpodim rabim. That the melech is mizgala to the people, and he comes out on the platform or wherever it is, and he's visible to the whole people. And then how does he appear? But rememes v'hispashtus gedulosei, with the greatness of his the expansion and the spreading out of his greatness, and it's accompanied by what you might call all the taksise, or all the splendor of the royal court. In other words, sorim v'nichpodim, many ministers and honored, members of court are also present. The kol zeh pinas rememes al-am, all of that is a rememes as regards the people, because he appears to the people. Rach shu pinas gilui ha-rememes, it's an inyan of the etzem point of the rememes to the people, begilui k'moi shehu. In other words, that this is a gilui atzmi in the rememes el-am. In other words, the king himself is in person there. It's not the gil of the rememes atzmiyas aishiyas of the king, because that's something purely united with him, and that's only known to him or known to the Eibishter b'chadrecha chadorim, in the rooms inside rooms. He himself personally appears with the whole pomp and splendor of the Malchus, but it's how he is showing himself to the people. That's a higher madrega in rememes el-am. On the one hand, it's a rememes only in reference to the people, but it's the etzem of that madrega. He himself appears with all of his pomp in front of the people. So here says the Rebbe, v'yesh loimar shezeh inyan hagilui deyontav sheni shel Goliath. A very amazing statement, that we could suggest that is the inyan of the second yontav of the countries in Chutzlot, that they keep yontav sheni shel Goliath. Shal zeh nema also mishte l'chol ha'om v'chulu v'chatzar ginas bisan ha'melech. But everybody with one chorus will tell me where that pasuk occurs. At the beginning of the Megillah. That we see that Achashverosh, he made this Suda Gedoilo for and it was written over there that he made it Mishtela Chol Ha'am Nimtza B'Shushana Biro L'Migodel V'Yad Koton B'Chatzar Bisan Eis HaMelech. the Eishleima Shazo Pinas Hamela Kemoisha Naso Kesa Lebrio. Va'ayim Mashkosu Balakuti Tera Diva Maskal Lahovin Indian Yoint of Shani Shal Goliath. This is a mimer for the Alter Rebbe in the Lakuti Tera at the end of the Drushim of Shmini Atzeres. That's where it occurs. Quite towards the end, right near the end of the whole chelik of Sefer Dvorim in the Lakuti Tera. So over there, the Alter Rebbe is mavaya that there are two levels when you get to what you might call these pashtas of the Reimamas of the Melech, how it is Reimamas, not Atzmis, but Reimamas in its own self, Elohim, not just a Ha'ora from the Reimamas Elohim. And he says that that's the inyan of Yontav Rishon and Yontav Sheni. What Yontav Sheni is Yontav Sheni Shogoli is Ve'ilu Yontav Rishon, that's Shai to all the countries, and that's like it is in Eretz Yisrael. When I say Shai to all the countries, I mean Shai to Eretz Yisrael royal, and Yontav Sheni Shogoli is Shai to all the other countries. So the Alter Rebbe said, what's the nafkamina? That if you look carefully there in the Megillah, you notice that first of all he made a mishta only Shivat Yomim, only 7 days, and that was inside. That was inside the actual base Malchusei. That was inside the house of his Malchus, and that was only Lesorim Kolasorim Avadim Avdei Amelech. That was to the closed court, as you might call it. And then after that, he made another mishta, Chatzar Ginas Bisan Hamelech, and that he made for 180 days. So that was how they call it, a whole 6 months. A binge that he made for the whole country, with all the people who were nimtza b'shushan apira l'mikodeo v'yadka katan. So what's the nafkamina? The Alter Rebbe says at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when people came up to the Beis Hamikdash, then that was Gilei Elokus Mamish Ad B'chidas Re'iyah. People were able to actually see Elokus Pagoloi. So that means that even though it was already Reimamas of the Abish's Malchus Elam, nonetheless it was an infagilui of that Reimamas in a high Madrega El Ha'am. Or that's like the king making a Suda Be'etzim Beis Malchusei, and that's made to all the Sodim, Va'avadim, meaning those people that were Be'emes, edel enough, and oishgedel, and were Kalim in their gufim to be makabel the Riyah and the high Madrei of Gilei Elokus of the Beis Hamikdash. Meaning that probably not everybody that came into the Beis Hamikdash, Mamish had exactly the same experience. It depended on the Kalim and on the Hachonas HaKli v'chulu. Of Ochaponim, Yontav Rishon, which is Shai Teretz Yisrael, or this is a Gila in the Beis Hamikdash, and that's in the Etzem Beis Malchus of the Melech, and that's only for the Sorim V'Avadim. In other words, that's a very high personal Gilui of the Reimamas Elam. Yontav Sheni Shogodi is where he appears for everybody. In other words, he makes a new Suda now, and this is for all the people in the Medina, but that's on a lower level. It's B'chatzar Ginas Bisan Hamelech. It's in the courtyard and it's in the garden. The Bisan means like a big spacious garden area where he made that, and that was L'chol Ha'amanim Toim. In other words, everybody who happened to be Mizdamen was shy to that, not just the Sorim V'Avadim. Amamila said the Alter Rebbe, that's already Yontav Sheni Shogoli is. In other words, that's already a continuation of this whole idea of the Reimamas Elam in its highest real form, but it's a lower level, and therefore it's called Yontav Sheni Shogoli is. And he's mavai over there, the Alter Rebbe, that's the difference between what we say that's brought in the Kisvei Arizal, that the Gilei of Elokus in Malchus Ta'atzilas is kamo, or in Zoh, is kamo b'derech Chaloin. That the Eibush is Meir and Zoh, like he's Meir for a window. So that's a certain Hagbola, but it's a Hagbola Atzmis, because the Etzem sun is Meir, derech Chalon. And then we say in Malchus Ta'atzilas is kamo derech Neikev. But the same thing, it's the Etzem Ha'er, just that it's Meir in a certain Toikif Hagbola. And that's called the Inif Neikev. And then we say that what is Meir on the other side is Alidei Parsa. So that's what he says, that the Indian, how it is in Malchus, that's Etzemoyer, Meir Alidei Chaloin and Nekev. Over the way it is in the Biyah, the way it's Meir, Alidei Malchus and the Parsa into Biyah, well, that's what we call Meitzitz Minha Harakim. We say on the pasuk from Shir HaShirim by Kiddush Levana, we say that how do you call it? Meitzitz. What's the beginning of the pasuk? So I can't think now. Meitzitz Minha Harakim, that he looks through the cracks, literally. That the Eiv peeps through the cracks. So that Meitzitz Min HaCharachim, that's the level of Yontav Sheni Shogolias. In other words, that the oil is only coming now through very severe cracks. And in that gufa, there's like a form of a hilem mitzad the crack. In the Inifan Chalon, the Etzemel just Meir Kamoisha, but it's Meir in a limited form, or that's called what we call Tzimtzum HaAtzmi. That's the Atzmi is still there, but it's just been, as it were, gequetscht, almost to use the expression, it's been pushed in such a way that it's Meir, not Beshetak Godel. If we say it's Meir derech HaKrak, well, that means that it's hardly noticeable, even though it's the same way. That's what he must be. That's the Indian of the Yontav Sheni Shokoli is that that's called Meitzitz Mina. Meitzitz Min. No, the pasuk. Meitzitz Mina. Roya Mia Chalon, but Meitzitz Mina Chalon. Anyway, I can't remember. Maybe Nachaloin is a Meitzitz Mina Chalon. That's one of these weird Sidurim here. Kiddush Levana. Here we go. Till Deidin, Midaler El Horim, Mikapitel Boys, Deidin, Zet Oimerach Kaslein, Mashgiach Minachaloch. Mashgiach Minachaloinais, Meitzitz Minacharachim. Mashgiach means just to pay attention. That means that the looker is looking with the whole of his, what you might call the whole of his attention and the whole of his being. Why? Because he's looking for a broad area, which is a chalon. Or when he's looking for a crack, he can only, as it were, he can only be very, very limited form of re'iyah, that you might call it only like a peep, as you might say, a peak that he manages to get through the crack. That's called meitzitz min ha-charachim. So the Alter Rebbe is masbir that first form of Yontav Rishon in Eretz Yisrael, the Gilead, the Eibus's Reimim, is to the Am, but in a very high and realistic way. That's called meitzitz min ha-mashgiach min ha-achaloines. The way it comes in Yontav Sheni Shogolias, that's already being made into a much greater tzimtzum, or through a much greater tzimtzum, but nonetheless, it's still a certain gilui of the etzem reimamus alam, not the etzem reimamus yishiyas to the king, but the etzem reimamus alam. It's just a much more limited. Therefore, it's called Yontav Sheni Shogolias. It's not really the immediate Indian of Yontav. As a brought down in the Gemara, nowadays we do it only mitzad minhag aviseinu biyadenu with the Ganze. Arichas where the Gemara brings it in Masechta Beitza. So therefore, that's the difference between the two, and therefore it's written that Suda was only made by Achashverosh b'chatzar, in the Chotzar, not in actual base Malchus. And that was the second Suda that was made for the whole people, and it lasted much longer. Why did it have to last so long? Because it's only a very minor gilui be'etzem, and in order for everybody to get something from it, it has to be made a longer time. And that's what he's masbeh over there. The reason is the Yontav Sheni Shogoli is that in Chutzalot, because of the heavy avir of Chutzalot, and because of what you might call the, I don't want to use the expression of it, but the Gemara says, Gozru al avir. Yeah, but Chutzalot, Tumah, there's a certain Tumah of the Avir of Chutzalot, it takes a long time, says the Alter Rebbe, for the Gilui of Yontav to seep in. And everybody says over there, a very interesting thing, but it's got a certain Nigir Halacha, and the Rebbe spoke about it on many occasions, that he says, wherever you're in Chutzalot, in order to be Kabul, the Erev Yontif. You have to have a Yontif Sheni. It's got to take more time, and it's got to be another whole Yontif in order to get across, because it's only through these Harachim, and it's only the end of Bisan Hamelech, it's only in the garden, in order to get there, it's got to take more time. Therefore, it has to be Shnei Yomim in Chutzalot, meaning no matter who you are, if you're in Chutzalot, you have to keep 2 days. And that was what the Rebbe spoke, the famous Sikha, Tosh Lamed Beis. The Rebbe came out with a whole bakosha that anybody who came to 770, from now on, they should keep 2 days and not make any fuss about it. As I remember when I was there in Toshinkov Vov, leading to Toshinkov Zion, a lot of the Eden from Krachabad and from other places on Tzilchus Torah all try to get back to their rooms or to where they were staying and put on tefillin, and it was, you have to do it b'tzina, the people should notice it, and sort of very, very delicate. Here's the whole 770s going, this unbelievable simcha, unbelievable. Here we were all running back into our studies trying to put on tefillin. Some guys were hiding out the back of 770 with their tefillin and put their hats over so the people should notice it. A whole amazing thing. So in the end, the Rebbe just came out of Toshalam and Beis, and he said he doesn't want to know what the Rebbe does. He said that as far as he's concerned, we have to paskin with the Alter Rebbe. We just have to say the Rebbe comes to Chutzlot, it's 2 days. That's it. And the same thing when I get to so really it should be. Anybody who's in Ratzah should keep only 1 day. I say it's mashma also in the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe, if you're medactic in the Lashon. The Rebbe is also marich in that in you. Although in kind of machem lahari, because some of the Rabbonim still to this day are a bit hesitant, and it's a big pilpul of when I get to Bochrim, ain't shum shaila. If you happen to be in Yontav, you keep only 1 day Yontav. If you happen to be in Chutzlot, you keep 2 days. Alright, so Al-Chapanim comes out Lafiseh that in the Chutz of Ginas Bisan Hamelech, that was the Infinite Yontav Sheni Shogod. In other words, a gilui of the king, and a gilui in a very high madrega, because it was his personal appearance to the people, but it's still a high madrega in Reimamas Eloham via base, meaning the second level in Reimamas Eloham. Bechinas is pashta shmui ala Medina. In other words, not himself personally anymore, not even himself personally as a relationship to the people, but only his name. He remains entirely in his palace. It's not even seen or observable to anybody because he's inside the palace. Is what carries out the whole authority of the king, only his name. He called his seal on the different proclamations or whatever it may be, his name, that's all. So that's already the Madrega Habais in the Rimamas Elohim. Rak Shmoi Mishpashet Al Hamadina Upoel Bo Hayira Vabitul Biha. So the inyan of the Shmoi has an effect on people. In other words, when they just see the name of the king's sign, or they see seal, that already causes in them or an apital of the king. They don't need to see, and it's not necessary to see him personally. Which means that it's still a reimamus of the millet as regards the people, but on a lower level of function. Shazehu prinas is pashtas levad mibprinas hareimamus. What reimamus? The reimamus elam. In the reimamus elam, that's only a his pashtas. The whole zeh ena kemoi shem ha'odom she'eno elazulosei be'emitosei kanal v'shem ha'malucha hu elazul. So here the Rebbe sums up for us that all of this is not like we saw beneged to the shame of Adam. What wasn't be emes in its emeskite for the sake of the Zulas, but here in the Indian from shame beneged to Malucha, it's only for the sake of the Zulas. Because we saw earlier that the shame of Adam is the oisias of the Amshochas Hachayas Elokis from Lamaila in Olam Asalyanim into the Adam. That's the way the Chayas is nimshach into the Naran of the Adam Milamayla Alidei Idin Hashem. So therefore we saw that Hashem was beacon again to him. It just so happens that there's also an Indian there that through that Shem he can relate to others. But Nitdos is the Mitius Pnimius Hashem. It's only one of the aspects of Shem. Mashenkin by Malchus, the aspect of Shem is only for the sake of the Zulus, because the Melech has no personal Yachas al derech harogi with all these people that they hear his name or they see it in his signature v'kayitza b'zeh. And therefore, that's purely for the sake of the Zulus. Mashenkin Shem Ha'odom has a certain trace in it, Chitzein Yusei, to the Zulus, aber be'amitoshe, it's shy to the Odom Atzmei. So that's the difference that we've been drawing the whole time in Shem, Gufa now, to Inyonim. The Shem Ha'odom and the Shem, how it is in Malchus and Malucha. Yesh Loima. Now we suggest, Shazo HaHefresh, Bein Bechinas HaMalchus, Shenikra Shem, or Bein Bechinas HaKelim, Shegam Kein Nikroim Shemoi. And as the statement has it in Posach Eliyahu that we say every Friday, the introduction to the Tikkun Zoya, V'chad antistalik minayu, when you will withdraw from them, ishtaru chulu shmohon kegufa beloinish masa. If you remember over there, harei nikroim gamkein shemais. From that we see that also all the other kelim are called shemais. Now, how do we see that? So we pointed out earlier that there was a connection between Shem and Keli. And so now the Rebbe is going to say that the inyan of Kelim, how they are, B'Shorshim, for example, in Atzilas, are they're called Shemois. However, there's a difference between them and Shem, how it is in Sfiras HaMalchus. The inyan of Shem and Sfiras HaMalchus is all for the sake of the inyan Azula. Be'ilu the Shemois, or they are inyanim Atzmim Yoter, Benegeh to the highest spheres of Atzilus. And where do we see that they're also called Shemois? Because the Posek Eliyahu says that if the Oyer, Ant means you, and in this particular case that means the Tistalik minai, you will withdraw from them, Ishtaru chulu shmohon, all of the names will remain, Kegufa b'loi nishmasa, they will remain just like a guf without a shoman. So we see from that he calls all the gufim, which is the kelim, he calls them shmohon, chulu shmohon, all of the names literally will remain Kegufin beli nishmasa. Harei nikroim gamkein shemes. We see that all the spheres are called shemes. Oh, so how come that all the spheres are called shemes? So he says, "V'hainu mashaheim b'pinas koiches." Yeah, what the inyan? I'm sorry, all the kelim are called shemes. How do we say that all the kelim are called shemes? He said, "Mashaheim b'pinas koiches." Or what the shemes are like the inyan of koyach lamayla. Well, that's the inyan of Reish Samavov. But Dibu HaMaschil Einaim Dibli Yispalel Ela. Yeah, this is one of the famous Maimon Chazal Ela Mitei Kovid Reish, and that's right at the end of the Hemshech of Samavov, in the end of Tov Reish Samach Zayin, right near the end of the Sefer. But over there, the Rebbe is Masbir that the inyan of Shemesh, how they're connected with the inyan of Kelim, is just like we see the inyan of Koichoi Sanefesh. And earlier on in the Maimah, you remember we had a little bracket where we said that Shem and Koyach have a similar inyan between them, and we also pointed out that Koyach and Kelim are also similar one to the other. And we saw that the inyan from Koyach is not a ha'ora atzmiyas from the moyer. On the contrary, a Koyach is a thing which is nimshach, but they're havdola from the moyer, like the inyan from Koyach hazrika, for example, when you throw something into the air, then there's a separate koyach goes out into the air, and that koyach it's called koyach hazriko, koyach hamaisa. So similarly, we have koyach hariyud, koyach haseichel, and koyach hadibu, all sorts of other types of koyachis. What they are, each limited, somewhat separate and defined inyonim, which are not oyer, albeit they're connected with the moya, but they're not oyer. They come b'derech havdola min ha'ma'or, or from the shorer. Ever they're called koyches. So we pointed out earlier that the inyan for shame is connected with this inyan of koyches, and that's what he's masbeh over there in that Maimar Bariches, the whole concept of koyches hanefesh, as the Alter Rebbe calls them, Mitanya, and their connection with the inyan of shame. Although it's all talking about the inyan of shemus ha'odom, how koyches ha'odom, and mele how those are called shemus. Mikol Moke, all a maila, the kelim lamaila are similar also to the inyan of koyches, as we'll see later on more about that. Mikol Moke, einem befinas shaychas el azula. They're not shayach mamish to the zulas. Just like we see the koyches ha'odom are not only for the sake of the zulas, they can be used for the sake of zulas. Aber beikir, therefore, the shimush odom. And if they have a shaychus to the zulas, it's only how the odom, for his necessity, relates to the zula. However, he said the inyan from malchus, malchus. I'm sorry, Umashem Malchus Ibrin Hashem. I'm sorry. And that word Malchus is called name. Harize Shaychus Elazulas. Or that's the inyan from shame out mamish only for the sake of the Zulas. So once again, we're getting back to that shilik in more detail. That we've got an inyan from koyches hanefesh, and they're also called shemes, Lashon Rabim. Each one of them has got a certain shame, and Lamaila, that's a kelim of Atzilas, or they are specific entities, not inyan from oyer, biklal, not inyan from hora atzmis, which is called oyer, and those are the inyan of shame. However, there's another inyan of shame, which is how do you call it, at the end of the whole giluim of all the koyches, and that's the koyach ha'isnasus, how it is in our Adar, and we saw that only by few people does that really become begoloi, the koyach ha'isnasus. Or that inyan from malchus, or that is shayach only to and only for the sake of the zul. So that's the summing up of the inyan ad koy. So we had then two madregas in the inyan from shame ha'odom, and shemus are shayach to koyches, shame ha'chatuma, to marucha. Then oyer is something lamaila or moved umizeh. Oyer is inyan from shitas, ha'ora, from the moya mamish, ein ha'moya, and that's the inyan how we've seen them ad koy. So now says the Rebbe, tehine Yadua she'esh beis madregas b'shemes. Now we're going to see a more protestic abir in the inyan from shemes. Well, that'll help us to appreciate this whole inyan of koyches and kelim and so on. How they are both in nefesh ha'odom and how they are lamaila. So, what are these two madregas in shemes? Shem ha'toya v'shem ha'kinui v'apa'ula. Shem ha'toya means the name which describes the etzem. Shem ha'toya means a descriptive name. Toa, l'tayeh, means to describe something. And Shem ha'kinui ve'apula, kinui means almost like a given name, not mamish a name shoshai to the etzem, but they call it even a nickname, it's called sometimes. In other words, not here, we don't mean a nickname here, but we mean a shame which is not miyuchad with the etzem. It's only something which is kilo shy to the odom, and that's why it's called his name. But it's chutz mea etzem. It doesn't involve his etzem. Mashenke, when you say Shema Toyar, you're describing the etzem of the mensch with that particular shame. Now, Shema Pu'ula and Shema Kinui are in this particular case much the same inyan, because a Pu'ula is also something the mensch does. He's rogil to do a certain thing, so people call him a name, Al Shem, that he does this regularly and he's he's capable at it. And it's an activity or a action, yeah, or even what you might call a trade that he does and he uses. But that's something michutz la'etzem ha'adam. It's a skill that developed through teaching and so on, and it's called Shema Pa'ula. Now the truth is that we're drawing here only two differences in Shemas. For the sake of our whole argument here, there's one Shem which describes and pictures you, the etzem, and then there's another Shem which pictures only activities of the etzem. And that's Shema Toya or Shema Kinui, and Shema Pa'ula fits into the same category. However, the truth is, we're going to meet up with another Shem, and there's in them the four names, the four types of names, and that is Shema Etzem, which means the name for the very essence of the thing or the person. For example, your Shema Etzem, if you're called Avraham or Mechoel or whatever you might happen to be called, or that is the name for your etzem. That's called Shema Etzem. We'll see about that as we go along. Then Shema Toyar is a description of your etzem. It's a name which pictures to me what your etzem is like. Obviously, not the name given to your etzem, but it's a inyan atzmi still. Shema Pu'ula or Shema Kinui is the third madrega. That describes activities that you do in a way that they are important to you, or they're not just something you did, just on the moment. Or that's Shema Kinui Pu'ula. Then there's what the Alter Rebbe calls in Tanya Shema HaMushal, a borrowed name, which doesn't really have anything to do with the etzem, but it's given for the sake of certain illustrations and certain ways to give you an idea where this person holds or how he acts. And like we see, the example that he brings right in Perek Aleph is that the world calls people who keep the halachas and they do decent things, the world calls them tzaddik. But the Alter Rebbe points out that that's only a borrowed name, because the real Shem HaToya, that's what he says over there, the real Shem HaToya of tzaddik is a much, much higher and elevated madrega, as he describes over there. So here what we're doing is we're dividing literally into two sections. We're saying that on the higher section is Shema Toya, and later that will bring us to mention Shema Etzem. On the lower, what you might call side, is Shema Kinu Vapul, what they're on the same level, and Shema Musha we're not concerned with so much here.
But in Perek Aleph of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says someone who's Merayvim Schilis, Merayvim al Avonis, is both a Shem Tayar Tzaddik and a Shem Moshe.
No, you got it wrong. So somebody who's Merubah, Schuyos of Merubim, that's only a Shema Mushal. That's only a Shema Mushal. And that's what he says, the Shema Toya, Etzem Madregas, the Shema Toya, Shal Tzadikim, is a much higher Madrega, incomparably higher. That's what he's Mavayr of there. If you look carefully, you'll see. Alright, because in other words, the Shema Mushal is only just a borrowed term, the same as if you would judge that person and you would say he's righteous. Never you call him tzaddik, but that's not the evidence of Shema Toya for tzaddik. Alright, so says the Rebbe, we've got these two general categories which have in themselves, as we'll see, more details. So therefore he says that where are we? Dus the Kelim yesh base madrigas. Where do we get to? Base madrigas. Oh, I skipped half of a line here. There is a shaykhos alazulas. Yeah. Ha'inenu dehine bekelim yesh base madrigas. Pnimis hakelim v'chitzonis hakelim. We didn't make that statement in the run of things right now. In other words, that in kelim there are two levels: pnimis hakelim and hitzonis hakelim. Now, pnimis hakelim is how the kli is be'etzem a kli lekabel oil, and it's mishyached with the oil, and it's mishyached with a high madrega in the oil. Ve'ilu hitzonis hakelim kol inyan is only lifil chutz me'akli, and that's called the inyan of pu'ula elakutz, and therefore it's also called sometimes the inyan for kinui. So says the Rebbe, Tehina Yedua Sheyesh Beis Madregas B'Shemayis. In other words, that since we're saying that Kelim and Shemas are similar in Yonim, and therefore we've got Pnimius HaKelim, V'Chitzenius HaKelim. So in Shemas we find also similar inyan, Shemas HaToya, V'Shemas HaKinu V'Hapeh, and Shem Hatoya is already shy to that concept of being mamish makabel, but pnimius, the oil of the nefesh, and being mishached with it, betachas hayichud, until the whole Adam, to a certain extent, is called al Shem Zeh. And other words, the madrega of oil, which is pshitas legabe the kelim, has so mishached with the pnimis and that keli, the mensch becomes like a yichud with the imitius ha'oil, which is there in that inyan. Now we'll see later also about the imitius ha'oil that there is in each middle or each koya. And then once you have that pnimius decay, kashrus and yichud in the two inyanim, the mensch is called al Shem Zeh. You can almost call him his whole being al Shem Zeh, even though it might be only a certain koya, or it becomes so atzmi in the pnimius of the Adam that it affects his whole being. And as we're going to see when we get to Chacham, the Rambam brings in Hilchos Teis, the Rambam brings that a Chacham is nikah. Basora Dvarim. He reckons that there are 10 things you can recognize an Emsa Chacham. And he says, B'achilosei, B'shtiyosei, Halichosei, B'rochoi, V'maiso Matone, Mabriz, Diburi, Mabriz, all sorts of inyanim, which don't have to do with the inyan for Chachma. So the point is they do, because A'emes Hashem Atoya of a Chacham is a union so much with the Kliya Chachma of that person, that the oyer of Chachma is Mishachet so much that becomes like a Yichud Amiti B'chol Inyana. It affects him B'chol Klolos Inyana.
Is there any, is that like the difference between, when we say before Rachaman and Rachamim? Is it like different in the levels of the shame?
No, not really, no. Because Rachamon is only a limited form of Rachamim. And that's mitzad the inyan of the Etzem Shviras of Rachamim, and that's mitzad the Kli, as it were. And that's like more the Chitzoniya. Yeah, it's got a certain kesher. Vilu Rachamim, that's Rachamim L'mayla Misay the Shalshus Lagamri. That's the inyan of... So I mean, there's a certain shaykhs, yeah. I wouldn't say exact, but it's not a completely off the line assumption. Tehina Yedua Sheyesh Beis Madregas B'Shemayis, and so Valter Moshe Bodem Lamata, Ko Uir Yesh Lo Kli Shemislabish Bo, Akamayir HaChochma VeHaSeichel Yesh Lo Kli V'Hu Moyach HaChochma Shehu Kli LeUir HaChochma. So the Rebbe says that in the Nefesh there's Uir and there's Kli. So the inyan of Chochma, or the inyan of Seichel, that there's a Uir HaChochma, which is Meir from the Nefesh, and then there's the Moyach, and the Kli HaMoyach, what they're the Kli to that Uir. Now the Uir we're going to see it a bit later. For the moment, our main approach is not going to be based on examining the Uir, but rather the Kli. In other words, that the Uir is in a much more poshut a muvdal from the whole concept of a chokmah or a muskal or inyanim of that nature in the normal sense. It's a very, very high inyan, but it is a Uir of seichel and a Uir of chokmah, and not the inyan of it's not the inyan from Kli. However, for the moment, we're just assuming the inyan from Uir. And he said that the Uir of Chochmah and Seichel are meir in the inyan of the Kli HaMoyach. Yeah, but who Moyach HaChochmah? Now it's well known that in the Moyach itself, you've got three, what's called cavities. You've got the Moyach HaChochmah, and the Moyach HaBina, and the Moyach HaDas. And so that's what he says here, Moyach HaChochmah. The Kaviochel in Chochmah, there's like a cavity of the Moyach, which is shy to the inyan for Chochmah, according to Chassidus. Then there's another cavity which is shy to Bina, and then there's another cavity which is shy to Das. And it's one of the Moyach HaChochmah is Miyamin, and the Moyach HaBina is Yoter Mismol, and the inyan for Moyach HaChochmah is Kar Velach, it's moist and kar, and the ine from Bina is cham v'yobish, and the ine from Das is keneged the Meitzach. It's lower than what they are, and it's keneged the ine from Meitzach, but that's the ine from Toikev. It's somebody who's got something in Das, he has a b'shleimus, and he becomes full of a whole ine, and even more than what mitzad the ine from Chacham, he becomes moli kol ha'chayis shel ine, and then what comes across an ine from Toikev as well. Like we see that somebody who's an emes a daton, then he'll say what he means, and he says it Toikev with confidence, and he'll have the ability to dismiss all attempts to weaken his position for Kaita. So therefore, that's the Indian of the three moichin. So therefore, the Rebbe, the kli to the Indian for Chochma, Vaseichel, what Seichel is really called, Al Shem Chochma, as hu moyach ha-Chochma, shehu kli le'oyer ha-Chochma. V'hinei mishu hu Chocham Godel, somebody who's a great Chocham, shenikra v'shem Chocham, and he's by sheer obligation, people call him the name Chacham. Harezeh Shem Hatoya. That is a descriptive name. Shemataya Etzem Mahusei Shehu Chacham. Well, that describes the very essence of this person and tells you what he is. Be'etzem Minyone, he is a Chacham. Not a man who knows Chachma, not a man who has certain Chachmais in his mind stored up, but he is be'etzem a Chacham. And that's the Shem HaToya. Well, that's what we just mentioned, B'Shem HaRambam, that's something that takes over. The Yichud is so great that affects the Odom, particularly the Moya being a very central portion in the Mensch. Well, that affects his whole way of activity and his whole way of Yachas Alabriyas v'chulu. L'chein, Onu koirim moisei Chacham, gam b'shor she'eino eisem b'muskolim. Mipnei shebe'etzem muhusei hu Chacham. U'b'yecholtei lahaskil u'lehis chakeim. His ability is to get new ideas, and lehis chakeim means to make other ideas from those ideas. Lahaskil means to get a new idea, or to be given a new idea even. Lehis chakeim means to make something with that, to develop on that, to make a chiddush, to imply to other inyonim v'ka'itza b'zeh. So therefore, a mensch who has got those inyonim b'hai shleimas, he's called a chacham, meaning that even when he's not doing that, and he's, let's say, he's like we said, the Rambam says, even if he's eating and drinking, let's say, but it's nikah that he is a chacham. Well, even at that particular moment, he may not be, but it's nikah that b'chol rega, it's b'yecholtei lahaskil ulehis chakein, not just to get an idea or to be miyatzer a new idea, but to make something positive and new in the Indian from Chacham. Tehine Shem Chacham she'anu koidem moisei eino Shem HaChachmas v'sikliyes protiyim shekvar kibu b'klei moichem. He said the reason why I call him Chacham is not that we say, oh listen, this guy has learned a lot of inyanim and he's got a lot of ideas in his mind stored away. So because he's got a lot of these ideas and a lot of siklim inside the klei moich b'shmira, well, that's why we call him a Chacham. He said not for that reason do we call him a Chacham. Anu korim moisei Chacham gam itine Shem Chacham eino shanu korim moisei eino al Shem achachmes via sikliyes, all the ideas and all the different forms of wisdom, the different how do you call it, sciences of wisdom, protiyim shekvar kibel b'klei moichay, he's already received and he stored them in his klei moichay. He's learned a lot of musogim and concepts. Even to what he gives over to the Zula. And we're talking about a capable person that's learned a lot, devoted himself a lot, and he's got a lot of things in his mind, and he even gives them over capably to Zulase. If you call a person Chacham pure mitzad that, and he said that's Shema Kinui. It's an amazing point. Mamish mind-boggling. Here's a person who's got a lot of profound knowledge, and he's got a lot of storehouse of knowledge and of ideas and things that he was mischacham and maskil behem and he can take that and share it with others. He said that's only Shema Kinui levad. Yes, Onu Mechanim, I say b'shem Chacham, we call him a Chacham only al Shem Asiklim Pratim Shekibel B'Kli Moichay. It's all because of things that he received into his clay moya. But not as we'll see later on that he be'etzem is miyuchat with Chachma, and his whole mahus is me'anitvi b'Chachma. So he says, Al Shem Asiklim Pratim Shekibel B'Kli Moichay. Now here we see the word kibel. Hein shelomad oy hiskil bi'atzmai kol zeu kabbalah. Now this is one of these fascinating statements. So we're going to work out carefully what is the Rebbe saying. In other words, l'chora you could say that he means that the koyach hachokma in its very beginning of any haskalah is a union of Kabbalah, because you get in your moyach hachokma a flash from the koyach hamaskil, which is the etzem koyach hachokma shemuto. That's what we call koyach ha'iyuli, a 60. And everything you gain is really in the form of a Kabbalah. If you've got a lot of ideas and you've got a whole storehouse of knowledge, as you might call it, that's all things that you got. It's not things that you really made anything out of them, but you received them. Because that's the whole way Chokmah works. And so that's what we could say, that the Rebbe is hinting, that Koloi, that the mensch isn't really emes a chochm mitzad Shema Toya, then all he's got is only what he really received from what he learned. Even those things that he's been maskil, in other words, that he presented the idea to himself. He learned certain facts, and then he got an idea, or he realized what was the emes idea and the emes nakuda of that particular inyan, and that's called hiskil bi atzmai. Says the Rebbe calls it Kabbalah. Really, that's only what is received from others. And even what it was hiskil bi atzmai, the what you might call the fundaments and the emes guiding lines of those sichlim, he got any from others. He got them from Shforim, or from others, or from other Yidden, or even from his Rav, or Miyodema. So therefore, that's a very deep remark, that a mensch who's just a storehouse of exact ideas, which he can give over exactly, because he's been mashkil by him, or he's better manitvia makabel. His whole Indian is a makabel, and therefore what he does is he takes those inyanim and he puts them away in the, what he call another coin inside the bank. It's been put there, and he's got it, and he dealt with it properly, and he's put it inside what you might call the silo, into the storehouse. Or not that he lives with that and it becomes his whole life, and then he keeps koching, and there was some new Indian, and there's an anaya kasha, and an anaya teretz, and an anaya relation to some other Indian. Okay, Kamoi said the Rebbe, and here we see that the moshel of another coin in the bank is a good one. He said, Kamoi ha'oshir, for example, you call somebody a gvir. Yeah. He said, that's a description of his etzem. No. He said, Shenikra Kain al Shema Kesev Azov Shenimtzo Etzlo. It's found by him inside his bank account, or in his safe, or his was. Harizem Mohus Nimdal Mimeno. But Ein Atzma Shaloi. It's not his atzmas. In other words, all the money in the bank, that's things that are outside his etzem. But he's got them. I mean, he's the only owner, he's the managing director, as you might call it. It's all his, and he's got direct ownership over it. Yeah. However, the name Oshir doesn't mean anything really about his emes mahus. And therefore he said, this person has got a lot of inyonim that really he's only a makabel. He's picked as a real Oshir. So that the Oshir is a sema kinui, so is the Chacham who just puts all these ideas into his storehouse. He's a Chacham picked as a real Oshir. כמו כן, מה שנמצא חוכמס ואסכולס במויכוי, ונקרא חוכם על שם זה, הרי זה שם הכינוי לבד. ואין זה שייך כל כך לעצם כלי חוכמה. Etzim clay chokmah, he hasn't really begun to use it because he's only a makabel. He just takes everything and he puts it away, or he got a certain indication and he was sharp enough to produce the basis of that idea to himself. But it's all things that he's been makabel, not that he really lives in chokmah and he sees new inyonim and new vistas the whole time. It's what you call another, like we said, another coin inside the coffer. He's a Shema Kinui Levat, and that's not shot to the Etzim Nakli, Mamish to Pnimis Akli, not shot. Tezehu Indian Shema Kinui, Mash Enu Shayach Ela, it's not really shy to his Etzim at all. Achamishakosav HaPardes, but that's the famous work of the Ramak, Mekodavira, Rabbi Moshe Mekodavira. In the Sefer HaPardes, there's a big chapter over there which is called Bashar Erchei HaKinuim. Shah Erchei HaKinuim, which means like a dictionary of terms according to Kabbalah. He goes right through the alphabet and he mentions all sorts of words according to the alphabet. This is what they are al pi Kabbalah. That's called Shah Erchei HaKinuim. Yeah, that over there himself, he says the word kinui itself. He deals with the word kinui. What does the word kinui mean? He said, Hu levush el ha-shemois. In other words, it's only a garment to the shemois. So what does he mean with that, Ramak? He means the shemois, be'emes, atu'erim, or the etzim, or even l'maylam is there. Yeah? Kinui is called a shem, but it's only really a levush to the emes Hashem. And therefore, even a Chacham has got all his stores, and he's got a storehouse of wisdom. He's also Hashem Aki. It's by him only Hashem Akinui. It's like a lavush on the real Shem, which has not yet really been used by him. He's still using only the lavush. Yeah, it's an amazing raya from the parties. The lavush ain't a shaykhela. The inner of a lavush, not right shy to the etzem. Velochein is a shaykh Shem zeh, gam, b'misha in a chochem be'etzem. Even though he's not a chochem be'etzem, you can call him chochem. And then he goes on to give another striking example of it. We'll make a start with that, and then Milchem tomorrow, deferring, hopefully with Melech HaMashiach, we'll be able to be mamshik the inyan. And then he says you've got another type of person in the union of the world of Chachomim and the world of Sikliim. He says a very fascinating idea now. He says, Shazagam Mishan Chachom Be'etzem, or Kamoi Mi Shehu Tafson. Kol Ma Shalomad, or Shishoma, Nitfas Bekli Moichai, Vegam Mashpil Zelosai, Vehu Be'atzmai Einu Mavina Zahinim Klau. Kein like Chush Klau Bas Collins. That's an amazing idea. A tafson. A tafson, in Yiddish also, he calls somebody a tafson. It means that he's a hopper. How do you call it? He hops with amazing swiftness anything he hears. But all he just hears is he's got this amazing ability to store up what he heard, and then he'll repeat it back to you. And it sounds like as if he's really in the Indian. Says that he's not. He doesn't really know. He's just a storehouse of very, very capably grabbed Inyonim. It says you can find somebody who can maybe give you a whole repetition of something. He can repeat it over very capably, but if you'll ask him to really give you some sort of explanation, you had to go from bringing it down and make it a whole life, that he wouldn't be able to, because he doesn't really live in the Indian Baklau. So the Rebbe said that's called a tafson. So he's got a storehouse, a very exact storehouse, and he can also give it over. He can repeat it back to you exactly what he heard. But who bash me ain't maven inside the Yonim Klau. Now what I mean, he's got some idea, but he's not a maven, amiti in the Yonim Waika ain't like chush Klau behaskola. He doesn't really have a gift or a sense for using the mind in the real way. He's just an amazing, it's not nice to say, but he's like a parrot-like mind. He can hear very exactly things, and he'll give them over, but he's not really in it. It's not him. So therefore he said, "Ein lo chush klal b'haskola, hari אי אפשר לקרוא זה חוכם בעצם, אחרי שאין עומד דבר שכל, וגם אי אפשר לומר שכלי מויכי הם הכלי קיבול לחוכמה." You can't say that these kelim of his moicha, whether it be moicha chokma or moicha bina, that they're kli kibul, that they're vessels of reception of chokma, miyachish ein loy chush b'zeh. Umikol mochim b'shem chokma miyichuneh. He will be given the kinui of the word chokma. People will call him a chokma, says the Rebbe. Yeah, b'shem chokma yichuneh. Yeah, that's Lashon kinui. Yeah. We see an amazing case. Yeah, Shahari Nimtzet Lechokma B'moiche. He's got the storehouse of a. You can't say that he's really a Chacham V'etzem. You can't even say that he's got a shaykhus mitzad his kli, and if you work on his kli, it'll be makabel Chachma deeper and better. He's not really made for that. He's made just to give back what he heard. It's an amazing sort of gift as a. Yeah. And he said that's called a tafsan. He said, but it's a niti inyan of Chacham. On the other hand, you can't call him the opposite of a Chacham. You can't say he's just how do you call it? A Dreikop, as for Chonila, or he's a Tipish. That's for sure he's not. But on the other hand, a niti inyan of Chacham, it's also not. Yeah, so here we see this amazing idea that you have to have what's called a chush. We have to, maybe tomorrow night we'll just do a little bit more with this word, chush, that occurs in Drush Exodus, particularly by the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. We say somebody has a chush. When you talk about chushim in other places in Exodus, you mean the five senses, like sight and taste and smell and hearing and all that sort of things. Those are called chushim. And they're a very sort of special gilui than average of their own. They're not koiches, and they're called chushim. Well, when we say a person's got a chush in, let's say, somebody's got a chush in Nagina, it's a very old statement in Lubavitch. I knew somebody in Tel Aviv, at one of the big cities, said about him that he has a emes of chush in Nagina. But it's the name of the building, the base Pinchas. The building's called base Pinchas. That was Pinya Altes, I knew him very well. So one of the big cities, Rabbi Moshe Guadia, he said about Pinya that he's got a emes of chush in Nagina. In other words, the ability to sing a niggun, to feel it, to live in it, the whole thing, it's a chush, it's like a gift, as I mean, sensitivity, which is not a koyach of the nefesh, it's certainly not etzem nefesh, but it's something very close, which expresses what you might call the etzem, and somehow brings the etzem into a definition of a sort. And so if you say somebody has a chush, and the same with the inyan from askola, you say somebody has a chush in askola, it means he's got this ability to grasp it in and to really be with it, to be in it. And over this guy, he's got a storehouse of details that he can give over, but he doesn't have a chush. Eleptish in them, it's not really him. You follow? And that's Danakud. Somebody who's got an emes, natia to Nagina, that's really something. You hear somebody who really knows Anigin, emes, and sings it in a way that, he mamish lives in it. And I was once in Australia. I first knew Rapinian when he came to Australia. It was before I came to it. So he came on a visit to Australia for the yeshiva, for Tommy Twim. Long before Eltimim came into being, as he came out to get money in Australia, he had a brother over there, Shmuel Altes, Shmuel Tal. He came out to see his brother and also to collect the yeshiva. And they made a meeting one night in Rabbi Gronel over Shalom South. Rabbi Gronel just passed away not all that long ago. Rabbi Gronel's brother, he bought a little chaim too. I made a meeting in his house, and everybody wanted to meet this quite well-known personality, Pinya Altes. And he was well known to be a managing. So Rabbi Gronel said, before we do anything, before we start all the inyonim, we have to discuss and for bringing. He said, we will hear a niggun. We want to hear a niggun. So he said that mechaved, you should sing a niggun. So at the beginning he said, what the stam singing, for bringing. So in the end I said, no, they want to hear a niggun. So he started off a niggun. And it was a very beautiful name. It was, they called it Rapina's Niggin. It was called on his name. Even though it's an Oria Niggin, it's a Lubavitch, it's not his Niggin in the sense that he used to sing it very beautifully. Let's see if I can hop how it goes. Tough, I can't think of it now. That's not it, but something very similar to that. Listen, that's in the middle, but I'll get the start of it. That's part of it. It's, and when he sang it, it was just that people just like that, because he used to sing with he used to open his mouth when he sang. He was feeling he used to let his whole voice out. He was a mamish Amanagin. He never learned it, but he certainly knew how to sing. And even Robert Groner was just sitting there like that until he took people. It's so that was the bass pin. That's a Finny Alte song. The first Shabbos I ever had in Eretz Yisrael I spent in town.
You realize I've been reading the first parak wrong. I've been reading it like this.
Well, how'd you guys up? You want to go and say Royal Boltmans? Anyway, there's an old saying that if you sing in England, this is more Rachamim, it's more good to Sachen. It'll help you in the shlichus. Good.
Okay, I've been reading it like this. Mikrit tzadik dinoi, mechar shesufu b'din.
Yes.
Aval inyan amita shema Torah. That's how I've been.
Shema Torah.